other areas which are currently peaceful may pick from here. So that what do we do? As much as we say we don't need a lot of deterrent, it is to educate and all that and all that. What really, if I may use the word force, is the government doing to ensure that these things do not recur? Because I was surprised when you say over 50% of our security forces actually they are deployed there, meaning resources are given personnel, meaning only 50% is being served by the rest of the country, which is a very alarming data anyway, if you ask me. Because these are less than quarter of the counties in Kenya consuming 50% of our police force and resources. What can we do to ensure that at least we get what we are supposed to do to be as a country, Mr. CS? And I ask this out of respect. I know the government has done a lot, but I feel as if it is not good enough, or it is not the best we could have done as a country. Because like keep here, there before there were no issues of conflict. I think I'm hearing they have started just recently. It was not as bad as other areas, but now you can see where Laikipia is going. If we don't tame it, from Laikipia maybe we come to Nyeri, Kenya and all that. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable CS, that including the AOB, should take us no more than 5 minutes. So if you can briefly respond, and if there is any need to engage further, we can always invite you.
Mr. Chairman, I need to correct something, because the media is here and statistics is very important. I said we're spending 25% of our general policing resources, not 50%, 25% of our general policing resources. Now, the question is, are there cases where have we been unable to deal with incitement? No, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we have cases in court, ongoing cases in court where we have leaders that we have actually taken to court because of this. The matter is going on in court, leaders that we have had arrested and they are going through the court process, and that a decision will be made not by us but by the court. Our colleagues at the NCIC have been working very hard on this matter and they are going on. So there are cases of incitement that we are prosecuting. We are not unable to deal with this, but we wish we didn't have to do this, or we wish they would be sorted out even at community levels without us having to arrest a member of parliament, because some of those cases actually involve members of parliament as it were. Secondly, have we done enough? Honorable members, Mr. Chairman, we've done enough. In every conflict, we have to look at the character of the conflict. The character of the conflict we were dealing with in Mount Elgon was different from the character of the conflict we are dealing with in North Rift. We believe actually that the solution to the character of the conflict we have in North Rift is a development solution. That is what will deal with us. What we're dealing with is not hardcore, driven crime. Because even at the National Security Council, I went to the council the other day to seek to list the various Pokot warrior teams as outlawed organizations like MRC and so on. But when we reviewed the matter at the council could not make that decision, because these are citizens of our country. What they're engaged in is they have taken cat rustling and livestock raids too far, as it were, and it has been made easier because they can access small arms that are flowing through some of our porous borders. It is not the hardcore criminality that we are dealing with, like we're dealing with Mount Elgon, of rape and plunder and so on and so forth. So even when we adopt those tactics, we have to look at the sustainable method. Secondly, this is in the middle of our country, almost, the population that we are dealing with is almost at the center of our country. Actions that we involve in as a government to try and bring an end to this banditry must also bear in mind that we have to build a sustainable environment of inclusion and integration, because these people have to live with their neighbors, as it were. That's why, as government, we have taken the decision that this is a development solution. And yes, we will apply the firm force of the law, but at the same time integrate it with deliberate development initiatives to try and intervene. Because we believe that if we stayed on this trajectory, the investments the government is making, for example, to avail water in that belt of the country, by the end of the next financial year, with the budgeted resources we have from the Ministry of Irrigation, we'll have covered some sufficient grounds that will reduce the amount of conflict that we are seeing at this moment. Secondly, with the livestock offtake program of KM, Kenya Meat Commission, and now that Kenya Meat Commission has been revived and is doing spectacularly well, we are going to introduce the populations in this country to a new economically viable livelihood that will be more attractive to them, as it were. So working together, and thirdly, of course, if we invest in critical infrastructure, like I've talked about the road between Nanyuki and Rumuruti, this again will open up the area and discourage some of these criminal activities. We will win this war, not in a day or in a week, but I think within the next year or two, we should be fine, because we can see the, as I said, light at the end of the tunnel. When you look at this, on an historical plane, and look at the incidents we had in the past and what we have now, the situations we had even in 2017, Mr. Chairman, if you remember, just before the election, at a time like this, the situation we were dealing with was remarkably different from what we are dealing with right now, which means that the investments we are putting are borne fruit. We are likely to achieve more by greater engagement and greater economic investment, and then they will get there as it were. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we have stretched the time so much, Honorable CS, Honorable Members, and Honorable Okukawunya MP had requested me, which I acceded as a chair, to address a matter of AOB, and that matter is in regard to what happened recently. And I'm hoping we shall engage that in about 3 minutes, because another committee is coming right in now for engagement in their business. And that matter is regarding the stoning of the helicopter of one of the senior Kenyans, which caused anxiety in some quarters. And therefore, I'll want us to be as specific as that. And I'll let Honorable Kaunya ask that AOB. You respond in the manner you can, up to the extent you can, and then we'll leave it there. Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, it's a matter of national concern and public, really a public concern that 3 days ago, while the ODM leader and the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga was attending the funeral of the late Jackson Kibor in Uasin Gishu, Soi Kebenes in particular, that rowdy group of people attacked the vehicles, including the chopper that was being used by the leader. That is a worrying incident that would like Chair to request that the CS could be able to update this committee on the status of investigation into that attack. And Chair, it's also a worrying incident considering the political time in which we are preparing for elections, because for sure is an issue that requires very firm and decisive action to deter even in the future such actions or incidences that can really bring us problems in this country. Because CS, I remember, Chairman, that the incidences we had in 2007, we all recall, started with this kind of small incidences, and if we don't deal firmly, CS, it will skyrocket and go out of hand. So CS, my question really is to update this committee on the status of investigation, and really to assure us as leaders, and I think as the country, that these incidences should not occur again, so that we do not, at least measures that are necessary, whether measures have been taken also to ensure the security of the Honorable former Prime Minister and other leaders who are engaged in the campaigns is actually guaranteed. We really need that assurance, CS. Thank you, Chair.
Sensitive as it is, Honorable CS, you may now comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. What happened in Uasin Gishu last week is unfortunate, regrettable, and quite frankly, from a security point of view, annoying and unnecessary, because there was no need to do that. The police are hot on the heels of the perpetrators of those acts. Investigations started immediately it happened. It is emerging from the evidence that we have collected, and the evidence that was collected on that night, that that was actually a premeditated act. It was planned because the suspects who were arrested with hoards of thousands of shillings broken down in 50 shilling notes, and they have taken statements. Clearly there must have been some choreography behind that, because it's not coincidental that these suspects had so much money broken in 50 shilling notes, and some of them, who are distributing this money around that particular time. The police have acted swiftly and decisively. We have 17 suspects whom we have taken to court. Investigations are going on, and we are still exploiting forensically some of the evidence we have, including phone numbers of the suspects and several other things that the DCI is doing that I would not like to discuss in an open meeting. We will go the direction investigations will point us. As I've said before, none of us, we all read the Constitution, none of us above the law. I am not, even if I'm Minister for Security or the Inspector General. We always have to act strictly according to the law, and fortunately we are a country that is governed by laws. However, I need to point out that these incidents are isolated. I don't think, first of all, and I want to say categorically, Mr. Chairman, with your kind indulgence and honorable members of the committee, that I don't think this incident speaks about even the county called Uasin Gishu. It's a small group of people who engaged in this, and they are criminals. They're being dealt with as criminals. Since this year started and the movement around the country, we have had about 4 incidents of this kind. There was an incident in Busia involving the Deputy President. We have people we have arrested who are in court on the matter. There was an incident in Kondoa in Kisumu, which we dispersed, a rowdy mob of people in a meeting that the Deputy President addressed. And then there was the incident in Nairobi, again, which involved conflict between groups of youth who have been given money or paid or ferried to the meeting and so on. And then there is this incident in Uasin Gishu. I don't think this speaks to a trend or a pattern that is emerging in the country. So my first assurance to the committee is that we haven't picked any such information. And Mr. Chairman, as we have been planning for the elections and so on, we have infrastructure across the country, and we are picking up information. I don't think this speaks to any pattern that is emerging. It's an isolated incident, as it were. Nonetheless, it's an incident we will investigate, and go to the farthest extent that the law will take us. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, I will ask you and the honorable members of this committee that I think we are duty bound as the Ministry of Interior to brief you on our preparations for elections and the security arrangements we have made. We have more resources than we had in 2017. We have more personnel than we had. Our police population ratios have significantly reduced. We are prepared, we are sufficiently resourced to support the conduct of the general elections. However, I must hasten to add that the conduct of elections is not our responsibility, it's the responsibility of the IBC. We will support the IBC to ensure that they conduct the elections. Where we'll be called upon to provide services, we will provide services. Finally, it's a point I need to say, which is, it may appear necessarily sensitive, but it's good that I be very sincere with you as a public servant. The greatest danger and challenge we face as a country during this electoral cycle, more than ever before, is the phenomenon of voter bribery and the renting of crowds and so on. There's a feature that is emerging in the country, and we have traced it across the country, where politicians are spending money to pay youths, move huge groups of people, ferry others at night and so on. Sometimes I don't know whether people accurately estimate the dangers that are involved in this. When you move people from one part of the country to another part of the country, they're traveling at night, some of them are traveling on matatus and so on and so forth. so that you can swell your numbers in a particular place. This phenomenon of renting crowds, trying to posture for popularity, or what you may call pretended populism, is what is actually going to hurt us, as it were. In 3 of those incidents I outlined earlier, it was a case where groups of people who had been given money clashed. Because you see, if you come to my area and I have an opponent there, I'll mobilize, and my opponent is also mobilizing for you. And if we are mobilizing in opposite directions and we don't have the opportunity to give our various groups a similar brief, they will fight. And then that's why I said earlier that police cannot be expected to mediate bribery contracts, because if I bribe people and you also bribe people, it's not upon the police now to figure out who was bribed how and who should behave how. That is the job of those who have bribed them and brought them. So the danger we face this year, and it's good that I say this very openly and sincerely to you as a committee in charge of security, what we have picked up that is going to be a danger in this year's campaign process and elections is voter bribery and the renting of groups of people, young groups of people and so on, who are being paid money, whether they are border ferried from one end to another end. That is going to become a problem. And if it doesn't stop as you move along towards the elections, because every group will be mobilizing and every group will be renting their own motorcycles and their own border people, the clashes will intensify. So it's upon us as leaders to decide how we are going to conduct ourselves, because all those things we are seeing, like what we saw in Matiangi, it's indisputable. All those people who were arrested, they had money. Who would have? How can it be coincidental that you are carrying thousands of shillings broken in 50 shilling notes? You must have planned for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, CS, for that brief. If we need any further engagement on that, we shall let you know. But we are also very, very hopeful that you're not going to have sacred cows that are not going to face the full force of the law, because it's very important. It gets to a level sometimes where you find you let some people go loose with whatever crime they have committed. This time around, even us as politicians, we have the goodwill. We do not want our country to break down. So do your work. We shall give you the support. I will accord you the support that is necessary so that we achieve peace during and even after elections. And then finally, if there are people who are moving crowds and renting, you have the system, you have the equipment, call them out for who they are so that we know in time. That is very, very important, so that you can create confidence in our nation, and also people know that they are safe even as we go to the elections. So we will leave it there because there's another committee coming in. I know members want to engage you, Honorable CS. Every time you come, you have a wealth of knowledge which they want you to share, and in fact, of course, information. But allow me, members, to say this, that we shall invite the CS, especially so, to give us in-depth details of preparation for elections and how you support IEBC, which you haven't told us, and which you are volunteering that you are able to share with us. So we shall create time for you to engage with us on that, together with, and now Honorable Sosi has come, together with this question number 074 on Safaricom. As much as you say it may hurt some of the entities, there's a level of information that you can share with us. And because we are obligated by the House to give response, and we must, you can as well share with us any confidential report regarding the same to the depth that you think doesn't hurt any one of those entities. And in our next engagement then, we shall engage in camera over the same, so that you can give us any other smaller details that we may require after we receive that report. And I think that would do now, for now, Honorable Sosi, because you went out, not that you disappeared, but also that there is another committee that's coming in, and I have spoken to what needs to be done about your question in terms of confidential report, and then we'll, next engagement with the CS, we will engage in camera. Thank you. Yes, and there are people waiting to get in, Honorable Chair.
Chair, sorry, I stepped out because we had a House Business Committee meeting and they needed a quorum. I have heard the CS, and I think I'm okay with the request, save for the fact that he mentioned that the investigations are ongoing. But from the information I have, yes, the investigations are ongoing, but the individuals from Safaricom were summoned to appear before DCI, and they haven't appeared. And I wonder how the investigations are still ongoing when they have not appeared. So I just wanted the committee to note that.
We have noted, well noted, it may be or not in that confidential report, but definitely it will come out when we do in-camera engagement with the CS, and I want to believe you also be there. So with that, members, I want to thank you very much, CS, for willing yourself to tackle matters before us. If in case you have any statement that may have been asked by members and you have it, you haven't read, it's good enough to table it. I will read them in the chamber later on today or tomorrow, and then going forward. In terms of the next engagement, we shall let you know by notice through a letter, including details of what we require you to prepare